Good morning and welcome to the Gospel according to Kinison, and I am your illustrious host, Bill Kinison, or you can call me Bill. Love everyone. I got to tell you something. We have the best. I know everyone says that. Even sports people will talk about we got the best fans in the whole world. But I'm going to tell you something. If there are better people watching a program than what watch this one, I don't know who they are, because you guys, you're fantastic. You're fantastic. I count it, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I count it a privilege to minister and to teach you every Sunday morning. I count it a privilege. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I look forward to this all week. I can't wait for Sunday morning to get here. And then you only give me 30 minutes. I should be getting like a half a day or something. But I love every one of you. We were taking care of some business last night, and the lady that was dealing with this told me, said, I watch you every Sunday morning. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And then later, as we were talking, she said, I go to a Christian Science church. And I said, and you watch me every Sunday morning? He said, yes. And I love that. I love that we don't alienate anyone. If you're alienated, you're alienating yourself. We don't alienate anyone. And I'm so excited about what God has given me. And it's probably took me, I'm 70 years old, it's probably took me 70 years to get to this point, to be able to give it to you. So if you think this is a fly-by-night doctrine that just happened to come up, you're sadly mistaken. God's been working on me for 70 years for this message. And now I have the privilege and the blessing of giving it to you. I want to just, we usually start off with prayer requests. We'll pray for everyone at the end of the program. I just want to recognize a few people. Pastor Richard Hammonds in Peoria, Illinois. Pastors a wonderful church there, and he is a fantastic individual and preacher and pastor. And I would recommend any of you in that area that watch our program, I recommend Pastor Richard Hammonds' church for you to attend. We were both young men, and when I opened the church in Peoria, he and his wife came, and it wasn't long until I just felt the urge and felt God speaking to me to make him your right-hand man. And he was. And he worked with me, and I worked with him. And I see things on Facebook, and he was ministering to the, I think it's the Agency of the Aging. And that just makes my heart feel good. That just makes my heart feel good when I see someone that I have ministered with and doing so well. I can't tell you how that makes me feel. And then I have another good friend. I hope they don't mind me mentioning their names. Pastor Joseph Dutton in, I think it's North Carolina. And he and his family, and I knew his father, I know his mother, I knew his brother, and some of the best people I've ever met are the Duttons. And he pastors the Epicenter. And I promise you next week I'll have you exactly where that is so you can go there. I think if you go there, you're going to want to go there. I think you're going to want to keep coming back. Pastor Joseph Dutton is a fantastic, I watch him, and he is a fantastic preacher. I knew him before he was in the ministry. And matter of fact, he told me that I prophesied over him, the road that laid ahead for him. And so I appreciate people like that. Dr. Jerry McKinney down in North Carolina. And he and his wife Deborah, fantastic people. Fantastic people. But these individuals have a word from God. It's not the regular song and dance that you're going to get. These are, I kind of liken it this way. David was just a little boy, and he had his sheep. And all of his brothers was older than him. He was the youngest. And one day, I think he went to take them lunch, and there was the Philistines and this giant coming out and challenging the children of Israel. And David couldn't understand why someone doesn't go out here and take care of this business. And he starts asking and stuff. And they start making all kinds of excuses. Well, what they didn't realize is that David didn't get much notoriety up to that point. But he protected his sheep. And when a lion came, he slayed the lion. When a bear came, he slayed the bear. So they had no idea the obstacles that he had overcome and the victories that he has had. That's the way it is with the McKinneys in the world, the Duttons in the world, the Hammonds in the world. These preachers and ministers, I don't really even like to call them preachers, these men of God and women of God. They may not feel like that they're turning the world upside down, but believe me, you're fighting the battles that no one knows about. And you're coming out victorious. Also, I would like to mention Becky Britton Voles, who's very involved in the community there in Springfield, Missouri. It seems like every time I turn around and I see something, she's getting another kind of an award. And I went to Bible school with Becky. I was very good friends with her father, Bill Britton, a fantastic man of God, and Becky just kind of picked up the mantle. And I just wanted to recognize them this morning. If you're living anywhere in those areas, search these people out. It'll bless you. It'll bless you. Well, I hope you've had a good week. I've had a fantastic week. My family is here. Ginger, my daughter, Devin, my son-in-law, Scarlett, my granddaughter, and Finnegan, my grandson. We have just had a fantastic time, and they're going to be here all week. I was going to bring Finnegan up and show you to him, but you know, he's got to eat and he's got to do all that stuff, so maybe another time. But they're here. We've had a fantastic week. I want to wish everyone this coming week, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And may it be the best Thanksgiving you've ever had. It's going to be what you put into it. And so I just wanted to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I want to get to my lesson. Here I've been going for 8 minutes. I want to get to my lesson. And the lesson this morning is the shift from subconscious rejection into agreement. That shift. I want to read a couple of scriptures to you. Genesis 26, 6 and 7 says this, and Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill him for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. In other words, this was one beautiful woman. And if I'm not mistaken, I try to remember all this, I think she was up in years and still was beautiful. So beautiful that Isaac was afraid they would kill him to have his wife. So he said, this is my sister. Now that gets us into our lesson. Last week we ministered on Jacob and Esau. And what we want to start with this morning is a man is rejected because he subconsciously rejects himself and others. Boy, that's a big statement right out of the gate. A man is rejected because he subconsciously rejects himself and others. You see, when Isaac got to town, he rejected the friendship and the friendship of those people and accused them of being enemies. That's literally what he did. Before he even talked to them, he'd already rejected them. Anytime you are rejected, it is because you have, first of all, subconsciously rejected yourself. Anytime, I want to repeat it, anytime you are rejected, you ever feel rejected? Well, anytime you are rejected, it's because you have, first of all, subconsciously rejected yourself. Do you really want what you think you want? Do you really want that? When you say you want something, you ought to do as Jesus did. He said, count the cost. Everything is going to cost you something. Billy Preston, which was a good friend, used to play for Sherry when she sung. He wrote a song one time. Nothing for nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something to be with me. Well, let me tell you something. You're not going to get something for nothing. Everything is going to cost you. When you decide that you want something, there's 3 questions you ought to ask yourself. What is the cost? I'm not talking about financially. What is the cost? What is the price of this? What's it going to cost me? And then third, am I willing to pay for it? Am I willing to pay it? What is the cost? What is the price of this? Am I willing to pay it? The Bible said, behold, I send messengers before my face who shall prepare the way for me. I really believe, and I've said this over and over and over, you control your destiny, not circumstances, not people that don't like you, not people that do like you, not your health, not your finances. You control your destiny. And somebody said, well, I'm doing fine. Well, we can see, because whatever your life is right now is what you have made out of it. You control your destiny. Bless everything in sight. Bless everything you can think about. Bless everybody that comes to your mind. Listen to this statement. It is your thought and your feeling, your word of love and blessing, that go before you. And when you get there, the deal is already done. That's a lot of words. But it's your thought and your feeling. Last week we talked about if you can feel it, you can have it. It is your thought and your feeling, your word of love and blessing. What are you speaking? If your word is love and blessing, then they go before you, and if they went before you, when you get there, the deal is already done. You say, why? It was done in you. You're the one that matters. If a man's good is taken, it is taken because he thinks and he feels subconsciously that they should be taken and will be taken. How many times have you heard someone, hopefully not you, but you've known someone and something will happen and they will go, well, I was expecting it. Well, then why are you surprised when it happens? Because you'd already sent that messenger, good or bad, and the deal was done before you got there. But you're the one that made the decision. Man, thank you. I'm ready to shout a little bit. You see, a mind must leave his low points of thought and feeling. He's got to leave it. And quickly, he's got to leave it before they spew forth any more negative manifestations. You got to get rid of it. That is what Isaac had to do and hurry and get out of that valley and go to the well of spring of loving and peaceful agreement called Beersheba. He had to get out of that negative place. He'd already, before he got there, had already turned it negative. He had to get out. He had to go to that well of peace, of loving, of positive agreement. You see, this loving, peaceful agreement is an agreement of the self with the self. That's what it is. That's what it represents. Let me remind you something. This Bible was written to the believers, not to the unbelievers. Yet the principles, and I think one of the greatest things that we taught last week was, God is blind. God is blind. He has no respect of persons. Now, we've used that for everything else. I told you last week, why don't we look at it this way? I wondered, and I told you last week, I wondered when I was a child, and when I was a young man, and sitting in church, and sitting around and looking at people that had nothing, depressed. Now, I hope your church was different. This was the kind of church I was raised in. Depressing. Had nothing. Sick. Dying early. I can remember back when I was a young man, 40 was old. Because they acted old. They thought old. They accepted old. Well, if you become at peace with yourself, I keep referring, I guess I'm on memories this week, but I remember, I don't know, here in the past, we have ministered on loving yourself. And I know you're not going to hear preachers tell you that, but I'm telling you that. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. Boy, that's a tough statement, but it's true. Loving yourself. If you become at peace with yourself, you will be at peace with God. If you will become at peace with yourself, you'll become at peace with man, with other people, and everybody else. But the beginning of it is you becoming at peace with yourself. That's why I said this loving, peaceful agreement is an agreement of the self with the self. I'm agreeing with me. And before I can be at peace with God, before I can be at peace with everyone else, I've got to be at peace with myself. I love the words of an old hymn. It says, oh, agree with God and win. Oh, agree with God and win. I like to spell God sometimes. I like to spell it with two O's. Oh, agree with good and win. Agree with good and win. Learn to agree with good and only agree with good. If it's not good, don't agree with it. Because it goes back to being at peace with yourself, an agreement of yourself with yourself. I wasn't going to read these, but I'm going to read it to you. Genesis 26. Oh, no, I'll save it for later. Anyway, when Isaac first went to town, he agreed with evil. When he first got there, he agreed with evil. Do not agree with negative thoughts. If I start feeling negative thoughts come in my mind, I will verbalize it and go, I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that. If there's a situation with my family, if there's a situation with me, a physical situation, a health situation, a financial situation, I am not going to agree with negative thoughts. I'm going to agree with self and with good. Do not agree with negative thoughts. It has got to where I won't even watch the news anymore, and I used to love that. Because all it is negative. That's all it is. It's all negative. I will not agree with negative thoughts. Even if you're dead. Don't agree that you are dead. Somebody said, well, now you're being ludicrous. No, listen to what I'm telling you. If you are dead, don't agree that you are dead. That was one of the secrets of Jesus' resurrection. And that was Jesus never agreed he was dead. He never agreed to it. When he released his spirit from his body, the last thing he said was, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. He never gave those people power to kill him. They could not kill him. Either he gave it up, or he's going to stay right there. Don't let that cross fool you. Don't let your circumstances fool you. Don't let your surroundings fool you. Don't let the doctors fool you. Don't let the financial planners fool you. Don't let that cross fool you. Even when you find your circumstances uncomfortable, never agree with it. Sherry and I hadn't been married very long. I think we've been married about, if I remember correctly, about 2 or 3 years. I was preaching a revival. My appendix and gallbladder both burst. They had to get me, they took me to the hospital, or took me to a doctor. It was on a Sunday, took me to a doctor. He checked me and said, I got good news and bad news. So which one do you want? And I said, well, why don't you give me the good news? He said, well, the good news is your gallbladder and your appendix both have burst. And I go, that's the good news. He said, yeah. I said, what's the bad news? He said, the bad news is we don't have a surgeon within 140 miles. And if you are not operated on in the next 6 hours, you're going to die. So I remember I told him, I said, all right, well, just load me up in the car. We're about 140 miles from home, Rockford, Illinois. Sherry could take me home. Well, they put me in the car. Sherry started driving. A blizzard hit. And it took Sherry 6 hours to go 140 miles. She got me to the hospital. They did an emergency surgery. I remember them wheeling me down in front of everyone, doing an emergency surgery. Then when I came out and I finally came to, Dr. Parrott Johnson, my doctor told me, you only have a few hours to live. Peritonitis had already set in. We took your appendix, but we were unable to get to your gallbladder because the peritonitis was spreading everywhere. What I'm telling you, and the reason I'm telling you this, is that you may find circumstances uncomfortable. Never agree with it. And I remember I was half out of it, and I wasn't trying to argue with him. I wasn't trying to pull some spiritual thing out on him and go, bless God, I'm not going to die. All I knew was, and I told him, I don't feel like I'm going to go anywhere. I don't feel like I'm going to go anywhere. What I was really saying in my limited capacity was, I'm not agreeing to die right now. I'm not going to agree with it. It's not your decision, it's my decision. You may not be able to heal me. I can heal me. I will cause myself to agree with self. Don't let the cross fool you. I remember we grew up, we would definitely be in poverty. Lived in the projects. I guess my parents were too proud to get on welfare or ADC or any of those other programs that helped the poor. What helped us was my family and I never agreed with poverty. We never agreed with it. We always felt like we should be rich. And as children, we didn't know that we were in poverty. We didn't know that living in the projects was getting near the bottom. All we knew, because that's what our mother and father taught us. One day, we are not this. We're going to be that. We are not poor. We are going to be rich. We are not sick. We're going to be well. Cause self to agree with self. We always felt like that we should be rich. And you know what? God blessed us. You are not going to prosper until you agree with yourself that you are prosperous. Somebody said, when do you do that? You do that when you're in the valley. When you're down in the valley, that's when you do it. Nothing comes to you except that it finds agreement in you. Somebody said, well, Reverend Kinison, you don't understand. I have cancer. Nothing comes to you except that it finds agreement in you. Sherry is a cancer survivor. We're very involved in 2 organizations on cancer. And one thing I do know, and I know with Sherry, the future looked dim. Looked like she probably wasn't going to make it. But you know what we decided? We're not going to listen to anything negative. If you started telling us a story or telling me a story, I'd stop you and go, is this going to end up good? If it's not going to end up good, I don't want to hear it. We only concentrate on the positive. Nothing comes to you except that you find agreement in that. I am in agreement that no one can take my good from me. I'm in agreement with that. Notice what happens when the mind agrees with God. Goes up to the well of loving, peaceful agreement, and the Lord appears. That's what happens. The man comes to an understanding of the law of mind, which is, as a man thinks and feels about himself, so is he. So is he. The Lord appears to him the same night at his darkest hour. That's when God usually will appear with you. Agree with God. Come to an agreement of good. And in your darkest hour, the Lord of the law will appear to you and will bring agreement with him. And you will agree. I want you to agree this morning as I close this service. I want you to agree with me this morning for what you want from God. Do you need a healing? God can give it to you, but it's going to be through you. Start agreeing yourself with yourself. Start agreeing with the good, and it'll start manifesting itself in your life. You need a financial miracle? Take the word miracle out. Start agreeing with yourself, and you'll see it come to pass. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your anointing. I thank you for this time that you give to us. And I thank you that you've opened this door. And I want to give you the praise for the strength that you've given to me. And I ask that you touch every person watching, every person living, every person that is listening to what we have to say this morning. I ask that you give them a miraculous touch and let them have the revelation of self with self. I'll give you all the praise. Amen. God love you. We're going to see you after Thanksgiving. We'll be here next Sunday. I'm going to be looking for you.